Hey guys, welcome back to the Bourbon Basement. I'm Steve, and I'm here with the round of 32 in the Bourbon March Madness. So what we got, guys? I don't know if you all have watched the first show of this, the first video on this with all 64 teams, but we took the expert rankings of all the bourbons. Uh, with those rankings, I seeded them one, twos, and threes, and then they matched up with the team uh, that other experts seeded on the basketball side. Now, I'm not picking basketball teams. I'm picking bourbons, which bourbon I think is the best. And as you can see, on the east side here, I did pretty good. I only lost one. You all probably can't see, but I got a little X right here where I lost. My other, the West and stuff like that, they're about 50-50. But regardless, it doesn't really matter until we get to the Final Four. Because what we're doing is we're letting the basketball games play out. We're moving our bourbons along with them until we get the four final bourbons. And then we're going to have a show where we test the Final Four to see who we think's going to win. All right, so let's get on started with the East here. So on the East, you got uh, Duke. Duke moved on. They represented by Old Forester President's Choice. And PCU is represented by Baker's 13. I think that that's going to be the Old Forester President's Choice is better. So I'm moving out Old Forester and moving on Duke. Then you got down here, you got St. John's represented by Blood Oath 11 versus Kansas, represented by E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. And that right there, I think, is going to be St. John's Blood Oath 11. I believe the 11's better than the Barrel Proof. Did a show on the Barrel Proof not that long ago. It's good, uh, but I didn't think it was what everybody makes it out of. So I think the Blood Oath's better on that one. Then let's go to the next two. You got Louisville represented by Knob Creek 12 versus Michigan State represented by Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. If it was any other year of Old Forester Birthday Bourbon, maybe. Wasn't the biggest fan of the 25, but I am a big fan of the Knob Creek 12. So I'm going with Knob Creek 12. So that means Louisville is going to move on in my bracket. And then you get down here to the bottom, and know if this thing has a timestamp on it, but you can see it's pretty late here. I just finished the UConn game just a few seconds ago, and what we got is UCLA represented by the Green Barrel Single Barrel or Green River Single Barrel, and UConn, which is represented by Woodford Double Oak. I think the Double Oak wins that every day, so I'm moving on UConn to the Woodford and the Woodford Double Oak. That's how the East. That's how the East turned out, and the East is actually my best side of the bracket. So we're going to move on to the West. So on the West, we had one. That looks like we only had one loss in the West too. So right here, Wisconsin. We picked Wisconsin. High Point was with the upset there. So anyway, we'll get started there at the top, and it is Arizona, represented by Pappy Van Winkle 15. Oh, that is the wrong one. And Utah State represented by E.H. Taylor Small Batch. Yeah, that's right. All right. So now I know this is not Pappy 15, guys. I explained it in the first video. The Pappy 15 is at my brother's house. He's going to bring it if it makes it to the Final Four so we can have a tasting. But this is the only Van Winkle bottle that I have, so I just put that in there to represent. But for that, uh, I definitely think the Pappy 15 is moving on. Put my sticker too far. Definitely think the Pappy 15 is moving on, so I got Arizona moving on there. Sorry about that. Mess up with my stuff. And if you all think I'm wrong, or if you all think you have a better pick, go ahead and how's your bourbon doing in this thing right now? So on the next one we got High Point represented by Blackwood, which was the big upset I think, and then you got the Arkansas represented by Weller 107. I think Weller 107 is better than Blackwood. So I'm going to move Arkansas on out and the Weller 107 on out. All right, then you go down. Now this one's a pretty good one, guys. So you got Texas, which I did pick, winning 2 rounds, so that was a pretty good thing. And then you got Gonzaga represented by Eagle Rare 12. Now, I just did a show tonight. Our live show tonight was on 2XO Jim of Kentucky, and that's what Texas is represented by right now. And it's really good bourbon, but it's not better than Eagle Rare 12. So that being said, I'm moving Eagle Rare 12 on out, and I'm moving Gonzaga on out. And once again, guys, I'm not picking basketball teams. I'm picking bourbons. All right, and the final one in this one, you got Miami, represented by Cellar Age Maker's Mark. And then you got Purdue, represented by Knob Creek 21. And I think Purdue and Knob Creek 21, I think edges out Maker's Mark Cellar Age. So I'm moving Purdue on out with Knob Creek 21. And we'll see how that does. So that's the West side for me. Those two weren't too bad for me. I only had one loss on each of those so far. But here's where we get into the bad stuff, I guess. So I was about 50-50 on this one. I had one, two, three, yeah, four. I had 4 losses on this bracket. So, but anyway, right here you got Michigan, represented by Stagg, versus St. Louis, represented by Hirsch Cast Strength. Um, I still pick Stagg over the Hirsch, so I'm moving Stagg on out. Stagg and Michigan on out. And then you go down here to Texas Tech, which was another one I missed. In Alabama, Texas Tech, represented by Four Roses Single Barrel. Alabama, represented by Rabbit Hole Velarde. And so now I picked Evan Williams Single Barrel Vintage. So I picked Evan Williams Single Barrel Vintage over Four Roses Single Barrel. I had an Akron with the upset. I was wrong. Texas Tech moved out. So that makes Four Roses Single Barrel now face my Alabama Rabbit Hole Velarde. All right. And I end up coming out with Texas Tech Four Roses Single Barrel. I think that one is better than the Rabbit Hole Velarde. So there's that. So Texas Tech moves on, and Four Roses Single Barrel moves on in my bracket. You come down here and you got Tennessee with Never Say Die. Sorry about that. Tennessee with Never Say Die, and Virginia with Evan Williams 12 year. And the Evan Williams 12 year is a hard bourbon to beat anytime. So I got Evan Williams 12 year moving on. So I got Virginia moving on. And then in my bottom there, I got Kentucky, who is represented by Rabbit Hole Hugo. I picked that to lose because I thought the Woodford Double Oak was better than the Heel Goat, so I picked Santa Clara. I was wrong. Uh, so Kentucky with Rabbit Hole, Heel Goat versus, unfortunately, they come up against Iowa, which is represented by Michter's 10. I think Michter's 10 is going to take that one, so I'm picking Kentucky to lose again. Sorry, Kentucky fans. But I did. At least they made it through the first round, and maybe they'll keep upsetting. Maybe they'll keep winning. So we'll see what happens. But Michter's 10 is definitely better, in my opinion. So I'm moving them on. All right. Well, that's the Midwest, and now let's move on to the final. I believe it's the South. Yes, it is the South. How did I do in the South on my initial? my initial thing. So I lost 1, 2, 3. Only lost 3 on the South. So I guess the Midwest was my worst bracket. But I did lose 3 on the South. But we're going to start here with Florida. They're represented by Russell's 13. And then we're going to go to Iowa, who's represented by Wild Turkey Rare Breed. I still think Russell's 13 is going to be better. So I'm moving Florida out with Russell's 13. Then we got Vandy represented by Old Ezra 7-year against Nebraska represented by Bookers. Didn't think Vandy was going to be there either. Thought that was going to be the 12-5 upset, but it wasn't. But still, it didn't change this game for me because I think Bookers would have beat either one of these bourbons. So I'm still moving Bookers out and Nebraska out. And we're getting down to our last 4 here. So VCU coming in there now. Now the VCU is represented by Green River Foolproof. I had North Carolina, which was Eagle Rare 10-year, beating that. I think it definitely does. But VCU Foolproof went on. So Illinois, they're facing Illinois, who's Blanton Gold, and I think Blanton's Gold beats uh, Green River Foolproof. So I'm moving Illinois and Blanton's Gold on out. And then to wrap it all up, down here we got Texas with Michter's Toasted versus Houston Angels Envy Cast Strength. This was probably the hardest one I've had so far to pick which one I like the best. And actually, I did a little tasting of them. I had open bottles over there, so I did a little tasting, a little shot of each of them. And I'd like the Angels Envy Cast Strength better. So I'm moving Angels Envy Cast Strength and Houston on out. All right, guys. So that's how the bracket looks and shapes up so far. Uh, just so you know, we'll follow these games out this weekend, and we'll have another show. I guess that'll take us to the Elite Eight when we're done. Is that right? Or Sweet 16? No, Sweet 16 and then the Elite Eight. Yeah, so we'll be at the Elite Eight. We'll do another show until we get to our Final Four. And when we actually get to the Final Four, we are going to take those bourbons. We're going to taste those Final Four bourbons, pair them off against each other to see who wins. So it won't be my choices. It'll be the actual winners and the bourbon that represents that team. So until next time, guys, good luck on your bracket. Why drink alone when you can drink with us? Cheers.